Hello and welcome to The Business, the show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. This week it's air and hair. In the studio we have Adam Twidell, a CEO of PrivateFly.com, a global booking service for private charter and aircraft hire, and the fastest growing private aviation company in Europe. Where is it based? London? Manchester? No, amazingly it's found in St Peter Street in the heart of St Albans. Adam will be telling us his story this evening. He'll be joined by Sam Campagna, who owns and runs Alternative Barbering Company, a classic barbershop with a contemporary twist, and this year's St Albans Retailer of the Year. And of course we'll have our usual top tips, best and worst decisions, light bulb moments that we know you love. But first of all, in the studio I've got Vicky Scott and Clare McAnulty. Good evening.
Good evening,
Good
Trevor.
evening.
And have you had a good week this week?
Yeah, excellent week. In line with the theme of our show today, which we're going to be looking at some niche businesses, particularly in the more luxurious end of the market. But I've had a really interesting few weeks running investment seminars, including seed investment, enterprise investment schemes, EIS, and venture capitalist trusts. And there is no doubt at all that there is not only a wealth of investors out there looking for investment opportunities, but there's also plenty of brilliant entrepreneurs looking to meet up with those investors, two of whom we've got on the show tonight. So it's really, really interesting, these sorts of investment opportunities, apart from being very tax-efficient methods for the investor. There was a huge amount of debate about how crowdfunding, which is something that's going to crop up later in the show as well, would change the face of the debt and equity markets, and how banks would fit into the future of that landscape. And it was really quite hotly contested. You know, there was a whole raft of people who, as far as I'm concerned, were sort of sticking their heads in the sand and suggesting that, it's just not going to happen, and it's not controlled enough, and it's too risky. But in my view, there was a whole heap of more that was telling me that actually this was really going to change the future. And I was talking to Madwena Rees-Mogg, who's just brought out a book on crowd and angel funding, and she rather cleverly likened it to Napster breaking all the rules in music listening and sales, and how the industry and powers stuck their heads in the sand, saying that it wasn't well enough controlled, and they were going to put things in place that were going to protect their position. And then, lo and behold, they suddenly found themselves out of business. So it was really, really interesting. Lots and lots of debate, lots of entrepreneurs, and lots of people with money to invest in those entrepreneurs. But it was bankers beware.
It's interesting you make the comparison with Napster, because just then, as I think now, there was a sort of complacent industry and establishment. It was the record companies then, and it's the banks now. And whenever there's complacency, there's someone there who's going to eventually sort of break a stranglehold, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is that entrepreneurs should look to alternative sources of funding, and I know Claire's going to be talking about that later on this evening. But there's a lot of money out there, and there's a lot of people that are really looking to to invest in UK PLC, and the future of small businesses. So it's all very, very exciting, and great time to be on the business show. Actually, I think.
Well, absolutely. Certainly, we like the idea of crowdfunding. I wonder though, do you think it's sometimes a bit overhyped though? Crowdfunding it's not the answer. It's not the panacea, is it? It's probably part of the answer. Perhaps,
without a shadow of a doubt. I don't think there is a panacea. I think banks will always be in a position to lend to in certain instances. Venture capital is always going to be there. This is just another method. It's a sort of lower level. It tends to be smaller amounts of money. And it provides an alternative channel, and I think that's what the future of all businesses. It's looking at different ways. It's not all eggs in one basket, and making sure that you've investigated all the options so that you choose the one that's right for you. It's not there isn't one solution any longer. It used to be just the banks. Now there's whole heaps of different ways you can go about this.
Just instinctively, it sort of tells me that it's particularly good news for the small businesses. We're hearing so many small business lending horror stories from the banks. The RBS is mentioned a lot, but I know there are other culprits as well.
I think as well that the climate is very right for crowdfunding just now, because people, I think, are just not approaching the banks the way that they would have done in the past, and therefore the climate is very, very good for crowdfunding. And people are prepared to try it because they feel they don't have the option of going to the bank.
I think the other thing is, the banks have been really told off, quite rightly, because banking isn't about risk taking. Banking that's not what they should be doing. And, any sort of alternative funding, venture capital funding, EIS funding, crowdfunding, it's all about risk. And it's your preparedness to take that risk. We don't want our banks to be risking our money. We're very, very happy to other people to be risking their money and making loads of money and sometimes not always making money. But I don't want my bank to be playing around with my money because they don't have the experience, they don't have the expertise. It's not what they do.
Right, okay. A bit of bank bashing there to start with. That gets us off to a good start. Okay, Clare, what have you got?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, talking about investments, I noticed investors in Thomas Cook shares have plenty of reason to celebrate this week. The company announced on Thursday that its earnings were up by 49% in the year from September last year to 30th of September this year. And to give you some idea of how far they've come, the company almost went bankrupt in 2011. Now, that's only 2 years ago. And at one point, the shares were selling at 8p each. Fast forward 2 years to the announcement this week, and their shares are now around 168p each, which is a rise of over 2,000% in 2 years. In other words, if you'd bought £100 worth of shares at 8p in 2011, only 2 years ago, they would now be worth £200,000.
Blimey.
Not bad.
Damn, why didn't we?
Exactly, in 2 years. So, of course, the big question is, how did they do it? How did they go from being almost bankrupt to such good news this week? Well, a mixture of major cost cutting, job cuts, store closures, and a series of disposals of companies that they owned. Added to that, they say there's been a strong demand for fixed price holidays to the likes of Spain, the Canary Islands and Turkey, and possibly it's just with maybe people being a wee bit careful with their cash. A fixed price holiday is quite an attractive option. You know how much you're going to spend. Interestingly though, Thomas Cook has also stated that it's expecting increasing revenues from exclusive hotels and city breaks over the next 2 years. So perhaps they've noted a change in the type of holidays people now go on. And we're going to be speaking later to Adam, but perhaps a short, expensive holiday is appealing to people rather more than a traditional 2-year break. It would be fair to say that Thomas Cook is the opposite of a niche business, which of course is what we're talking about tonight. In fact, they seem to have expanded and acquired all manner of other businesses in the history of their growth. But what they have in common with niche businesses is focus, because only focus and determination have enabled them to recover so dramatically over such a short period of time.
Much underrated virtues as well. There's something in me that feels instinctively not good about share prices going up when jobs are cut, but sometimes you just have to recognise that your market's changing, don't you? But
I mean, to be almost bankrupt, you need to take action. You're not in a position to be careful in that stage.
I mean, it is fascinating the way sort of markets react to these things, but also the whole idea about sort of focus. Sometimes those tough decisions sort of have to be made. I mean, but then again, CEOs on average only last about sort of 3 years, so it's not surprising sometimes when people aren't taking those tough decisions and just hope that bad news will happen on somebody else's watch, I suppose.
It's another interesting one though that fits into the the concept of the Napster and the crowd fundraising, etc. Because the whole travel market has changed so dramatically over the last 10 years. There's so much more online booking. There's so much more people doing it themselves. You get the flight separately. You get the hotel separately. Where does something like Thomas Cook fit in? And I think, I really agree with you, Trevor, that this sort of concept, that share prices go up by that amount, and you've just closed down all the stores and you've made loads and loads of people redundant. I think it's appalling management behaviour, really, because it's another one where they stuck their heads in the sand, could see what was happening and didn't adapt quickly enough, and that really, really affects people's livelihoods.
Although I think what happened, so they basically listed on the stock market in 2007, Thomas Cook, and went on a major spending spree. Every year they bought some large company. They seemed to buy and buy and buy, and then I think this then led to this almost catastrophe in 2011. So they're now trying to get rid of all these, I suppose, companies that they feel they won't have any use for anymore. So yeah, no, it is. It's very, very drastic. But I mean, one of the points also that they made was that 36% of their business now comes from online bookings.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
So I dare say, although a lot of the agencies have been shut down, there is a reason for it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, my subject this week is, Clare and Vicky are both past masters at the art of small talk. I've seen them in action. I've seen them in action before, and I saw a fascinating article in the Sunday Times today, just talking about the small talk or the lost art of small talk. That personal relationships, as I think we all instinctively know, are vital in cultivating contacts and building careers, and breaking the ice or small talk is sometimes seen as quite a trivial thing. But actually, it's tremendously important. And this article was talking about opening conversations, closing conversations, filling gaps. An opportunity to demonstrate sort of intelligence and listening skills to what the other person is saying. And this piece was saying that companies are increasingly sending even their top talent, who you thought might be quite good at this sort of thing, off to almost like a sort of finishing school for face-to-face communication. And the big worry is that the least skilled small talkers are the younger generations. And maybe we can just talk about this for a minute or two. Who I think they were stereotyping as lacking in interpersonal skills as a result of spending too much time in front of screens. He says, sitting in front of two screens as we speak at the moment. That Twitter is great, but is it ruining the art of conversation? Discuss.
Yeah, I think now people do both. We are all capable of doing both. But it's certainly true. You sometimes go out to a restaurant and see the children at the table with their phones. So their parents and the grown ups are talking, and they're not joining in. They're just doing texting.
We were doing that 2 hours ago, actually, trying to keep the kids quiet.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because my daughter recently had a 15th birthday party. No, it was a mother that had a 50th. No,
you're looking good for your age,
yeah, 142. 15th, and with a crowd of kids together, boys and girls, who would normally be spending a whole heap of time on their phones. They were all chatting quite comfortably because they were interested in having fun together. I can absolutely understand when my daughter's sitting with my husband and I at dinner, and we haven't managed to rustle up a friend for her to come with her, why she's just bored to death with what we're talking about, and so sort of gets the phone out so she can have a chat with somebody else whilst we're having a chat to each other. And I think I hate it when the youth of today are criticised. I think they will sort of have a rough time, the youth. It's sort of, what we do as older people, criticise the youth. And I think it's really unnecessary, because when you see them around and about, they're just as capable of having a whole heaps of different types of conversations if they're interested and animated. They don't just live on their communication tools, but they're just very, very good at communicating, actually, in all sorts of different channels, in all sorts of different ways.
Well, we want to hear your views on that and the other subjects we've opened up already. The studio number, of course, is 01727 839 926. The beloved Twitter is at RVTheBusiness, and good to see lots of tweets earlier in the day in the build-up to this show, so that's fantastic. And email thebusiness@radioverulam.com. We'll be just practicing brushing up on our small talk whilst you listen to these messages.
Hi, this is Danny Smith. Join me weekdays from 4 till 7 p.m. for West Harts Drive Time, with features including Chris's Film Club, Pound Saver, Community Notice Board, Calendar Artist, Hot Topics and many more besides. We also feature correspondence covering topics such as lifestyle, consumer advice, cooking, interior design and travel. We have regular interviews, local news and sports, celebrity birthdays, travel and traffic updates and competitions as well. That's all on West Harts Drive Time with me, Danny Smith, on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
Has your child outgrown day nursery? Would you like them to attend a more structured environment with a wide range of interesting and challenging activities?
I like cooking stuff with Mrs. Federici.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten in Sandpit Lane is now offering extended sessions, so even if you work, your child can enjoy an outstanding environment that prepares them for school and is somewhere they will want to go to every day.
I like playing games. I love my teachers.
For more, see our website at mountcarmelkindergarten.co.uk. Mount Carmel Kindergarten, private education for little people.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten. You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. It's about 17 minutes past the hour now. This is the slot, our main interview slot for the evening. And Vicky, who have we got?
Well, I'm really delighted to introduce Adam Twidell from privatefly.com. And this is an online business which provides private jet travel all over the world. I was looking at the website earlier, and some of us might think that 25.5 grand for a one-way ticket from Istanbul to Paris might be slightly out of the zone that our bank balances are capable. But it's clearly not the case for loads and loads of individuals, businessmen, people who are going to luxury ski lodges, etc., etc. And I guess complete privacy and secrecy and need to travel very quickly is incredibly important at any price for some. So how on earth did you get into this extraordinarily exciting and exotic business, Adam?
Well, hi, good evening. My career in aviation started when I left university and joined the Air Force. And I had 10 fantastic years flying. And then I left and I wasn't ready to move on to scheduled airlines. I wanted a little bit more excitement in my flying. So I joined a company called NetJets. NetJets are the leading fractional providers of private jet travel. And during that time, I was amazed about how inefficient the private jet market was. Here is an industry which was all about a business tool, the private jet, getting business execs from one meeting to the next, saving time. Yet the industry itself was so fragmented. If we have a snapshot of Europe, there are 2,000 private jets that you can charter, but they're operated by 700 different companies. And all of these jets are behaving like taxis, dropping passengers off and flying empty to pick up the next set. And for the end customer, that question, you talked about the price on your flight from Istanbul to Paris, but even regular private jet customers don't know how much they should be paying for their flights. They're concerned that they're paying too much. They're worried that they don't have a good oversight of the market. So my challenge was to look if we could bring this online. I'd seen so many fragmented industries being completely transformed by the internet. In your discussions before, you were talking about Thomas Cook. There was a travel industry giant which just did not adopt the online technologies until it was almost too late, and they're bringing it back from the brink now, which is fantastic to see. So here was a private jet industry which was just very traditional and offline. And that was our challenge at Private Fly, to bring technology in to allow the private jet customer to be able to find, compare the best available private jets in the marketplace.
And how did you find the suppliers of private jets? If they're all operating their own private jet companies, how do you get them to sort of just come via you?
Well, that was the challenge in the beginning, because here was I telling them that private jets in the future were going to be bought online. I mean, I often ask a room full of people on a travel conference how many people bought their tickets, their commercial flight tickets online, and nearly everybody does. But 10 years ago, people were scared about buying travel online. They were apprehensive, and now that's not the case. And with the younger generation being brought up by communicating with each other by Twitter, by buying things through eBay, there's a confidence online. So I would sit down and talk to the suppliers about our future outlook, and I'd tell them the message that what we're trying to do is connect the customer to them in the simplest possible way, in the fastest communication, allowing their price to get maximum exposure.
It's a fascinating concept, isn't it? Because I would have placed it in those sort of rare brand of goods, like for example a Rolls Royce or something, where actually some people, the higher the price of a good, actually the more likely they are to buy it. You know, sometimes there's a certain snob value or luxury good sort of psychology about that. But are you saying then, through using a search engine, that that I don't know, that the people who can afford to fly this way are just as price sensitive as anybody else?
Absolutely, and I think the recession has transformed the private jet industry. Nobody wants to be ripped off a high net worth, a company executive, corporates.
Yeah.
They don't mind paying for a service at the right level,
Yeah.
but they haven't become a high net worth by being ripped off along the way.
Yeah.
And it's all about price. I say there's three pillars that we have to get right to sell a private jet flight.
Sure.
The first is price.
Yep.
Speed of response. We have to get those prices and our responses to any questions back to the customer quickly.
Yeah.
And then the third pillar is professionalism.
Yeah.
And I have such a wonderful team of aviation experts here in St Albans who know the absolute inside out of every aircraft that we're selling.
Right.
So if somebody was wanting to know if a Citation XL could get to Moscow to Nice non-stop, these guys would know instantly. So yes, we're selling flights online, but what's really important for the business is that we're an offline company as well.
Yeah.
We've got 24-hour customer support by young guys who know their aircraft very well.
Yeah.
How do you guarantee sort of quality? Though, if you've got a whole raft of people who are supplying private jets, presumably they're supplying their pilots as well. You talked about service and quality and reliability. How do you guarantee that with sort of third parties, in effect? Which
you're
is what
absolutely. I talked about the three pillars being price, speed of response, and professionalism. But overall, under all of those three pillars, there's safety. And safety in aviation is an absolute. And I, throughout my aviation career, have been involved in flight safety. We have an accredited list of aircraft operators. So you're not always going to get the cheapest aircraft for a certain route with private fly, because we do not allow certain aircraft operators onto our network, either for safety concerns or for customer service levels, which is equally important. So we have a distilled list of aircraft operators. When you talk about aviation safety, it's about two things. It's flying a modern aircraft with a well-trained crew, and that well-trained crew can make such a difference.
So do you literally go out and vet them? You go and look at the crafts, you look at the aircraft, you look at the staff, you look at the setup, you
That's right.
look at the qualifications and everything
First of all,
else?
we look at their qualifications. Every aircraft operator has to have an AOC, an aircraft operator's certificate, which allows them to carry passengers for reward. But as well as that, we're checking their insurances. We're looking at their safety management systems. We're looking at minutes from their safety committees. I'm interviewing pilots. On Friday, I took a trip down to see one of our aircraft operators in Bristol, a company called Centerline. And they're having some new aircraft, so I wanted to look in the hangar and speak to the engineers who are bringing those aircraft online, and that's very important.
Yeah.
And it's a very big part of our job is that accreditation.
So I can see that you clearly know your aircraft and your ground crew and all of that incredibly well, that side of the business, with your background. It must go without saying. How do you take that and then start, like an online business? That's like moving into a completely different arena.
Well, I was lucky. I had a fantastic business partner who came on the journey with me. I started the business with my wife, Carol. She was in the magazine industry, in luxury magazine industry, and with a marketing background. So together we started the business, actually. I know you've been talking about funding, but we had a house on Breakspear Avenue next to the train station in St Albans. And after a period of reflection, we decided that we were going to sell the house and put the money into private fly, and that was the seed funding. So it was very much a journey together, and Carol has taken over the marketing and the sales. So it's been a brilliant partnership.
How do you find these top end people that can afford these sorts of flights that are looking for this sort of things? How do you market to them? How do you actually get to them? How do you find them?
We have to describe who's flying by private jet. There's a lot of business use, corporates, so it's very hard to break into that level. We're also targeting the high net worth, and it's very hard to find the high net worth. So
they do sort of like put very big walls up around themselves, don't they? Because everybody's after them.
That's right. So at the beginning we had a brainstorm, and that question came up. So we decided that what was going to be very important to us was partnerships, partnering with high-end travel agents, concierge services, airports. We partner with Manchester Airport, so on the Manchester Airport website you can book a private jet, and that's our software which has been white labelled, and we handle the calls. Even in London, Addison Lee, taxi cabs, a very important partnership for private flies. They've continuously been dropping people off at the private jet terminals, and now we're able to organise their flights as well. So partnerships has been a key part of the marketing.
Right, and sorry, Trevor, you sounded as though you were about to go.
No, I was just really going to say that if partnerships are key, I suppose that gets us back to some of the things we were talking about earlier about not small talk exactly, but building personal relationships with the people in those key positions in airports. That's obviously clearly a vital part of your business as well. You know, at Manchester and which other episodes you've got to obviously get out and about.
Yeah, and I think during the recession, luxury products have been hit hard, and there's a lot of luxury niches out there who always thought they were an island on their own, and we've joined these islands together and done quite a few successful partnerships.
And when a client comes to you and says, "So how much should this really cost? What is the price of luxury? What is the price of getting from Istanbul to Paris for these people?" I can understand that a lot of these flights come with a price already attached, but how do you advise?
Well, they don't actually, because every private jet is unique. 2/3 of private jets are flying where airlines don't. So people are using private jets not because they don't like flying on a scheduled airline. It's because the airline's not travelling when they want to travel. So this is where the technology comes in. We have we track every aircraft on our database. We know where it is and when it's available to charter. So when you come to privatefly.com and you'll put in, "I want to fly from Istanbul to Paris,"
I do most weeks.
We'll know. We'll know exactly where the closest aircraft is that fits the requirement for you. We'll know if it's available, the hourly rate of that aircraft, the landing fees at Paris, whether the crew needs to stay overnight in Paris. That's all the technology. So lots of algorithms go into calculating that estimated price. Right. And then once you're happy, and our returning customers miss out that stage, we submit that flight tender to the marketplace, and each of those aircraft operators will start quoting to fly you from Istanbul to Paris. So you'll receive multiple quotes. You'll be able to see the aircraft types, the ages, information on the crew, that important safety information.
So, it's quoted that you're the fastest growing airline in Europe, which is
we've been
fabulous.
We've been very disruptive in the industry.
Fantastic!
When we started,
we like disruptive people, don't we? Very much.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but what's really good? I've just returned from a private jet convention in the States, and we were billed as the market leaders in online business jet travel. And now, obviously, we've fed our suppliers a heck of a lot and given them a lot of business, so they've become very supportive. So the disruptive technology has been successful.
I must introduce you to my cousin, who's a Delta airline pilot, who's desperate to get out and move into something a bit more exciting.
Well, it's really interesting, actually, because there's a huge difference in being an airline pilot to being a private jet pilot. Unfortunately, airline pilots don't even speak to their customers anymore. They're locked behind that flight deck door. As a private jet pilot, you're waiting at the front of the private jet terminal. Here at Luton, the closest airport to St Albans, there are 3 private jet terminals.
Wow, I never knew that. Did you know that, Trevor?
No, I had no idea. No,
Luton is one of the busiest. In fact, it's the second busiest private jet hub in Europe, only beaten by Le Bourget. It's a fantastic airport to have on our doorstep at St Albans.
Wow. I've got to quickly squeeze one question in, which is totally silly and all of that, but we all want to know. How did you get involved with the X Factor?
Well, that was a great opportunity. Marketing, there's the shotgun approach of just getting the brand and message out there, and there's targeted marketing, and this was definitely a shotgun approach. It's a huge television audience, but when we were asked, we were already flying members of X Factor around, yes, and GLS. So we knew them very well, and when they asked if we could support the X Factor, it was just a great project to work with and a lot of fun. We shot that at Signature, which is one of the private jet terminals at Luton, and we had a great day up there and a lot of fun.
Brilliant. And then finally, because Trevor's going mad, telling I've got to stop. Who's the most fun person that you've actually flown around?
Well, the thing about being a private jet pilot, it's all about customer security. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
You'd have to shoot me, tell me, and then shoot me along with all the audience.
Client confidentiality is so important at private flight.
We're looking forward to hearing about it off air, though. No, I know, I'm just joking.
Thank you ever so much, Adam Twidell. You're going to join the panel discussion that's going to be running shortly. But for all of those people that are looking for private jets out there, it's
privatefly.com, or pop in and see us on St Peter Street and find out that we're more than just a website.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
Hi, I'm Kathy Weston.
And I'm Lydia Elcoury.
Join us every Thursday evening on The Parent Show for expert interviews, local information about caring for children in West Hearts,
and a What's On guide you just can't afford to miss. We're here every Thursday between 8 and 9 p.m. on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM.
Don't forget to tune in!
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
People living with cancer or life-threatening illness can often feel isolated, confused and alone. Grove House in Waverley Road, St Albans leads the way in offering free specialist care and support to patients and their families affected by cancer and life-threatening illness in St Albans, Harpenden and Dacorum. To find out more about their services, or how you can become a volunteer, or make a regular donation, or leave a gift in your will, phone 01727 731 000. Or visit grove-house.org.uk.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Yeah, welcome back to the business. It's about 25 minutes to the hour, and we're moving straight on to our panel discussion. So packed is the show this evening. Claire, why don't you introduce our new guest along with Adam?
Yeah, so we've just been joined in the studio by Sam Campagna, who runs the Alternative Barbering Co. His salon in the centre of St Albans combines a traditional barbershop with a contemporary twist. Since opening in 2010, Sam and his staff have gathered rave reviews, and also this year at the St Albans Retail Awards walked away with the Hair and Beauty Award, and also the main prize, which was the coveted Retailer of the Year.
I know, we were there that evening, weren't we? That was a real good knees up, wasn't it?
We spoke to some of Sam's staff there. Sam, would you first like to tell me just a little bit about yourself and also how you came up with the idea of the Alternative Barbering Company?
Yeah, well, obviously we started it in 2010, but I've been doing this job since I was 16. And as every natural progression goes, you want to do your own thing, and that's the result, really. We came up with the name. I came up with the name sitting in my bedroom, really, about 11 years ago. I was a hairdresser, and then went into barbering, and I just wanted it to basically tell you that it was a different form of barbering.
The idea of a barber conjures up quite an old-fashioned
type
of thing. Now, when you come up with it, what was people's reaction? Do you think it was a good idea or bad idea?
Some people, not necessarily with the idea of opening. I mean, people would never really know your individual status or talent in what you do, but everyone always thinks, let's just do appointments because it's convenient for everyone else, rather than working on that traditional barbershop where you do come in and you take a seat and you wait. People just would like that convenience to say, well, I like you cutting my hair, but I want to have an appointment. but it just doesn't work that way. It's a bit like a walk-in restaurant. So
So you're quite a young guy. Why would you think of this traditional barber? I can't imagine you'd have been at a traditional.
No, I mean the traditional side, I think, always emulates a bit more of a comfort thing. It spreads across the ages. If I went for an ultra modern, shop a few years back, maybe in a few years' time it wouldn't appeal to the new, modern, younger guys coming through. So you narrow down your potential market.
So would you say then that it's different from a hairdresser, it's more of a relaxing experience, so that guys can come in and just relax and almost in an old-fashioned type of just take the time and sort of have it's part of the experience.
We try and get it that way, and we're fully staffed all the time. Unfortunately, we get to the point where there's a lot of people waiting, but everyone I've ever spoke to said they don't mind, so it carries on. But we do all we can. We keep opening up longer and longer hours. Well, we don't keep doing that, but we have recently done that. And 7 days a week. So we just try and make that window as large as possible, so the wait isn't as bad.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the panel discussion now. My first story is about an entrepreneur whose name is Purat Shabani. He was turned away by almost every bank and venture capital firm in the UK just 3 years ago, but is now celebrating seeing his drink named one of the world's best vodkas. Purat Shabani's Polish vodka, Konik's Tail, which has been developed on a shoestring, has been voted the most loved vodka brand by the world's 50 leading bars. As he says, "I'm quite surprised. My rivals are all multi-million pound brands. My business is just me." And that is exactly what he means. He's not even got one member of staff. It's just him.
He's virtual.
Yeah.
Right.
So when Mr. Shabani originally went looking for finance to launch the company, he was turned away by nearly every firm in the British Venture Capital Association directory and plenty of private investors too. Investors said Mr. Shabani lacked experience and was trying to enter a saturated, bit of a pun there, vodka market and would need a huge marketing budget, and they suggested he would need £5 million to market his vodka. Undeterred, he instead funded the business with a small round of friends and family finance and then solely from revenue. "I've done everything on a shoestring and spent zero on marketing," he said. Instead of traditional marketing, he painstakingly built up relationships with London's leading bartenders and spirits retailers and persuaded them to stock his vodka. Konik's Tail is now stocked in 600 bars and specialist retailers throughout the UK. Now, Adam, I heard you earlier mention to Vicky about the fact that you had to find your own finance. And did you have quite a lot of opposition when you first suggested the idea of starting up the private airplane business?
We funded the startup by selling our house here in St Albans, and my biggest opposition with that move was my mother-in-law. But she's now back talking to me, so that's fantastic. But 2 years ago, we realised that we could only fund the business so far. And we had a UK website which was going great guns, and our customers in the UK were very happy. But we wanted to roll this product out to Europe. We realised that there was no way a French private jet customer was going to book a private jet on an English website, phoning a telephone number in the UK and speaking to somebody in English for their flight between Paris and Nice. So we had to raise some more funds, and we raised £2 million 2 years ago, which in retrospect was a ridiculous amount of money to raise. Too much for the angel investors, but far too small for venture capital money. We had some great meetings with VCs who just said if you could multiply your business plan by 20, we'd invest immediately. So £2 million was a difficult amount of money to raise, but we did it, and we actually did it quite quickly and quite easily. And I think if we break down the reasons why we were investable, I think we had flesh in the business. We'd sold our house, so investors knew that we were committed. We weren't going to walk away from this. The experience of Carol in marketing and luxury travel, and my experience in aviation, the size of the market was big, and we had some very disruptive technology. So if you put all of that together, the investment is available.
And what about you, Sam? How did you manage to raise enough money to open up your shop? I understand you've got some rather interesting chairs that were quite expensive.
Yeah, my chairs, it was hours of looking on eBay, which I came across. I mean, they're like, shouldn't really say how much they are really on radio, should I? Just in case someone breaks into the shop. But they're very expensive if you buy them from America.
But you have a great security system.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I've got a German Shepherd. So yeah, I mean, it's those kind of things. The thing that actually helped me out truly was that the interest rates went down, and I was one of those lucky people that was on a interest-only mortgage, and it freed up that money to be able to think what the next step would be, what I was going to do. But I mean, we done it on a shoestring, really.
And did people try and put you off? Did they say that you were going to invest money and it was going to go nowhere? Yeah.
I mean, location. They were saying potentially, people don't walk past. But as for many things, if it builds up like this chap here, it takes time, but you can build it without too much hassle. You just have to. Too much investment and a lot of hassle on your part, but you build it that way rather than, having a lot of money given to you that sometimes people are a bit careless with.
I mean, I think as well, both of you probably had to be very, very confident that your idea was going to work, because if everyone round you, a little bit like this guy with the vodka, everybody around him is telling him it's a really bad idea, it's quite difficult to keep confident, and despite everybody telling you no, you know it's going to work. Did you find it kind of called on your confidence, all this kind of sort of people making such remarks? Yeah,
absolutely. If you're going to launch and be successful in business, you have to be determined. You have to believe your own PR, so to speak. Sam bootstrapping his business and my partner Carol and I selling our house. I think that makes you realise that every pound you put into your business has to return, and you look very closely at the money you're spending. And even though we raised £2 million, I think we still very much have that attitude. We will not do anything which doesn't show a great return on investment or build the brand. That combined with being Scottish, I think is
helps. And I think, as Sam said, if you're putting money in, then you are very aware of probably every pound, every £5, every £10. Whereas if you were given a grant for whatever it was, perhaps you are a little. Yeah, little
I think, like for example, with you, Adam, £2 million does sound like a lot of money, but what if the general cost of doing that was £20 million? Then it's only 10% that you had. Do you see what I mean? Like, it may cost someone £100,000 to do a salon, but if I only done it for £10,000, to some people £10,000 is a lot of money. But we done it. You do it in both those ways. We don't know.
Yeah, but also, the finance does help you to accelerate your business much quicker than you could do organically.
Of course.
In our business now, we're rolling into France and Germany and the United States, and growing a business organically, it would have taken a lot longer to do that. And also the investors do bring experience. We have 15 fantastic investors who I can call on. They're more like mentors than investors, and they're a great part of the supportive business.
I'm interested in, we've talked a lot about the decision to go out and get funding, but when you've got the funding, as entrepreneurs, both of you, in very different types of businesses, the pressure of feeling, oh crikey, what have I done? I've got to borrowed that money or got that money from somewhere else. How did you, sort of deal with it? Do you think entrepreneurs have a certain sort of streak of resilience about them in order to be able to put that to one side and just get on with the operation rather than be sort of crushed by the thought of it, really?
I've never really thought about it.
That's your answer then. Okay.
Every day in the office is fun, and we're developing the brand at an accelerated rate, and our customer reviews are fantastic, and you just look at the next day. And
so in terms of our listeners, it's the sort of the message is let the future take care of itself, just concentrate on the day to day and have fun in the process.
You've got to learn lessons from the past, and nobody gets through business without making mistakes, and you don't want to repeat them.
Sure.
But it's all about tomorrow. 3 months seems like a lifetime away at the moment.
I was the opposite.
Were you?
Yeah.
God,
Yeah. I'm fine at that moment once I've done it, but I'll put the pressure on myself instantly with everything, but then when I'm there dealing with it, I'm calm as you like.
Yeah.
But I love that pressure on yourself to
so it brings the best out of you then, right?
Definitely.
Okay, right.
So this takes us on to our second subject, and it's actually still on the subject really of funding and funding businesses that are maybe what people would call niche or slightly creative businesses. And I read a story about basically a girl who she wanted to refurbish a van to sell tea out of, so she decided the British public weren't getting sort of good enough tea. She decided to refurbish a van, and she decided to use the crowdfunding website Kickstarter. I don't know if I think you've probably both heard of that. Basically run by 46 people out of a tenement building in New York. The website provides a space for creators to bid for funding from people around the world. Backers can pledge between £1 and £5,000, but their donations are only taken once the project's funding goals are reached. In return, they're guaranteed nothing but the satisfaction of participating in a new creative process, although there are occasional tangible awards. So basically, this girl Emily ended up with £10,000. She got her goal, £10,000 from 300 strangers. And I just wondered, maybe Sam, if you want to tell me, do you think that quite often a niche business or a creative project maybe gets people's imagination, and that's why they would be prepared, say, to sort of give somebody £10, £100, whatever?
I think so. I mean, with that particular story, I love old cars, classic cars, so I know what van she's got, and I would almost just give her a little bit of funding towards it, because even I know what the outcome of the van's going to look like. So even if that was just the niche of her business and whatever else she'd done, I didn't mind. I'd like to see that van finished, so I'd quite happily.
But it's quite interesting that people are prepared to give money to somebody they don't know, but they like the project. They've got engaged in the idea of it, like you're saying about the van. What do you think about it, Adam?
I think it's another fantastic thing the internet's done. It's broadened the financial opportunities that businesses have. At the moment, I'm fascinated by Bitcoin. Here's a whole new currency. Which has come about because of the internet, and perhaps the banks have been kept sleeping. The internet is a very powerful wave. It's bringing down governments across the Middle East. Kickstarter, what a fantastic way to raise money and to get your message out there. Not only are you receiving investment, but you're also making everybody aware of your brand and creating many word-of-mouth recommendations.
And creating a buzz about your project, this as well. And we'll be talking more about crowdsourcing. We'll be doing a special programme in January on crowdsourcing. So thanks very much to both of you.
Thanks guys. And in a minute we'll be back with Mike Meldrum of The Mortgage Mind, but also talking about specific subject of networking. But in the meantime, thank you, Adam and Sam.
The Solid Gold Music Show on Radio Verulam is with you on Saturday mornings between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. Join Derek Staines and Stephen Hall as they flash you back, value discs, have a brief biog and interview the stars. We also allow SJH to ramble down nostalgia lane. It's all on the Premier Oldies Show here on 92.6 FM. The Solid Gold Music Show, sponsored by DocGuard of Luton.
Who guarantees you rent 52 weeks a year? Guarantees you rent when the property is vacant? Guarantees you rent when the tenants fail to pay? Guarantees you a contract start date with no risk, no insurance policies and no set-up fees? Northwood are the letting agents who guarantee rental income 52 weeks a year. Call St Albans 734 550. Northwood, St Albans 734 550. T's and C's apply.
If you want to get in touch with the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. It's just coming up to about 8 minutes to the hour. Now, finally, in our sort of event slot. We're going to talk about the subject of networking, aren't we, Vicky?
Yes, and hopefully we've got Mike Meldrum on the phone. He's a consummate networker. Mike's been on Radio Verulam a number of times and runs a business called The Mortgage Mine. And he's a fantastic networker and a dedicated BNIer.
How about that for an introduction?
Good evening, Trevor, and good evening, Vicky. Great show this evening. I'm quite interested in what you said at the top of the show, talking about small talk, and you're absolutely right. That's where networking comes into its own. In particular, with word of mouth is always the strongest recommendation you can get to do any sort of business, and that's where sort of BNI and other networking groups come into play in its own. So good old small talk.
We love it on this show.
Now, Mike, BNI is a bit of a sort of has a Marmite effect on small businesses sometimes, and some people just swear by it, and other people really don't like it. I know that you're a big fond follower of it, and it's done great things for your business. So, just explain it a little bit more to us, if you would.
Okay, BNI itself has been around since about 1985. And it's very much a formula based on the 6 degrees of separation. We all know somebody somewhere, and it's a way of opening up doors that you would never even begin to open yourself. And it was quite interesting. I was with a chap last week that wanted an introduction to Pearson's, the publishers, and I said to him, "Well, that's easy enough because my brother's a managing director in Australia for him." So BNI is a formula. It's like the Premier League of networking. It's a formula that repeats all the time, and it gives businesses the opportunities of opening up all these doors. The great strength is, if you know what the benefits of your business are, and you can explain that, then other people will go out and find you business. And quite interestingly, you called it the Marmite. Absolutely right. If you don't know what the benefits that you offer your customers are, there's nothing that networking can do, albeit quite often there's training that can be put in place that will help. And again, in BNI has 7 training programs to help people grow their businesses, to help people sell their businesses, and to help educate fellow members as to how they can find business for you.
Hi, Mike. Just to say, this is Clare here.
Hello, Clare. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Mike, just for people that have never been to a BNI meeting, do you want to maybe just describe roughly the what takes place and what you do there?
Well, the first thing is you're usually exceptionally tired. Most BNI most BNI meetings will start round about 6:15 to 6:30 in the morning, with 30 minutes of informal networking, whereby the members can greet their visitors. They can discuss any business that has passed the previous week. We may have met some members, some other people that may be useful to other members, and that's a really useful 30 minutes that you have. Then you go into the formal part of the meeting, and the formal meeting has its introduction. And then there is an education slot to help the members to get the most out of their memberships. And then during the meeting, every person in the room gets 60 seconds to pitch their business. And I think, as I said earlier, that if you know what the benefits are to your customers, those 60 seconds are invaluable to help you find more business. Once you've gone through those 60 seconds, everyone's done 60 seconds, then one person from the room will get the opportunity to stand up and do a detailed pitch on their business for 10 minutes. Normally, a meeting consists of 25 to 40 members, so that 10-minute slot is a sacred slot, and you will probably get one of those a year, perhaps 2 every 18 months. That's the sacred cow of networking, the 10-minute slot.
Now, Mike, I've been, as you know, I've been along to one of those meetings, and the 60-second feeling was one of the most terrifying feelings I've ever had. Actually, I mean, but also quite liberating and invigorating. Just actually summing it up in 60 seconds. I mean, there were people there who'd been many times before who still quite happily confessed that they changed their pitch every time, and they were operating in a slightly different way, that the people weren't hearing the same pitch. They were always refining and making sure they got the pitch just right. I mean, but it's a good tool, isn't it, to actually sort of really think about your business proposition.
Well, you're absolutely right, Trevor. I mean, the great thing about the pitch is, if you've got 60 seconds to get all the strong parts of the benefits of your business, or the benefits to your customers over your business, is you'll use that same information in the sales process with the actual prospect, and trying to get that honed down to a short period of time is both very difficult but very powerful. That once you've cracked it. I know that you've got Victoria in the studio there, and I've had so many beatings from that woman trying to get what's your benefits to the customers refined, so it's quick and it's clear and it's easy for your customer to understand, or easier for your prospect to understand. Very difficult.
I've never heard.
Now, on that note.
Yes, on that bombshell. Yeah.
So thanks ever so much, Mike. We're coming up to 9 o'clock. So thanks for coming on the show.
Nice speaking to you all.
Hopefully we'll meet up for another bashing before Christmas at some stage.
Always a pleasure. Thanks very much. And,
so that's
a great show this evening.
Good. Okay. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Bye.
So there we have it. We've got Mike. We've got about a minute left. A really interesting show. Some insights around the. We sort of labelled it in terms of niche and luxury goods. I mean, Vicky, is there something that sort of you took out of the show? Briefly.
Well, very briefly. I just love it whenever we start talking niches, because even if you've got a very, very wide audience, unless you can really hone down what it is that you're doing to a sort of small number of people, and as Mike said, really nail the benefits of that business, you're lost. And I think we had two guests on tonight in Adam and Sam that really had nailed down exactly what they got that was different, and were selling it incredibly well, and were being successful. So I think it's brilliant.
And Claire, what do you think?
Yeah, just I think too that what we spoke about maybe 5 minutes ago, just the confidence that, if you're confident in what you're doing and you can raise enough funds, then that's much better than trying to go and get money from a bank and convince them, or money from somewhere else and convince them. And both Adam and Sam had done that. They were both confident enough in their idea, they knew it could work, and they were prepared. For example, Adam prepared to sell his house to do it. I mean, that's confidence for you.
Absolutely. That's everything for tonight. Wish you well and see you next time.
You've been listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. If there's anything in the show you want to talk to us about, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.